Hey guys, before we get to the episode, I want to let you know, if you haven't heard already, February 18th and 19th of 2021, I'm hosting a free virtual summit for you to come and learn how to grow in the 4 pillars of your life. That is your business and finances, your relationships, your wellness, and spirituality. I'm bringing together the experts from all over the world that you've seen on my show to share their tips, tricks, and their secrets on how you can level up your life right now. So head over to growthnowsummit.com, grab your free seat now. It's growthnowsummit.com. Grab your free seat. You'll be able to see the speaker lineup there. I cannot wait to see you guys there, connect with you, and grow a strong relationship so we can all grow together. Again, that's growthnowsummit.com. Grab your tickets now. Welcome to the Growth Now movement. I'm your host, Justin Shank. I'm an entrepreneur, speaker, and podcaster who years ago decided to go on a journey on how to grow in all areas of my life. What I found out was it's really a matter of focusing on the 4 pillars of life: business, relationships, spirituality, and wellness. And that's what we do here. We explore how to continuously grow in those areas, all while having a ton of fun doing it. I'm really excited you're on this journey with me. Now let's get to this week's episode. This week, I sit down with Nelson Tressler. Nelson's early life was filled with trauma, struggle, and court trials. But although his childhood was something that many of us couldn't fathom going through, he was able to turn his life around in a positive way. He set goals, kept a positive mindset, and stayed accountable to his actions. He's developed the I Got Smarter app to help others do the same. Now, you guys are going to love this chat that I have with Nelson. As you can tell, just from that little snippet, it's very relatable, right? Like, we don't always get handed the keys to the kingdom. We don't always have the same opportunities as everybody else, but we have the same possibility to create greatness in our life and the life for people around us. And Nelson shares all of that. He talks about breaking generational habits. He talks about really breaking through and creating an incredible life and how he was able to do it, even though he was dealt a really, really bad hand. I'd break down all the things that he went through as a kid here in the intro, but it's too much. You have to dive into this episode. You have to hear from Nelson. It's absolutely mind-blowing what he's been able to not only create for himself, but overcoming the odds to do so, which gives you guys that are listening the power to do the same. Now, before we get to the episode, I want to ask a favor of you guys. I really want to take the Growth Now movement to the next level here in 2021, and I need your help. Here's what I need you to do. I would love it if you would head over to iTunes, give me a 5-star rating, write a review. Tell me what you think. Tell me your thoughts on the show. Tell me how you feel about me as a host. Do all the things. Obviously, I'm hoping for a 5-star rating, but be honest and head over there and do that for me. That helps other people get to know the show a little bit better. It helps people find me on iTunes and anywhere else they listen to the show, and you guys would play a massive part in that. Also, tell a friend, share it on social media, and don't forget to tag me on Instagram at Justin T. Shank. I'll make sure to hit you back and thank you for that. And maybe we can dive into a conversation. I want to thank you guys so much for coming along on this journey. Now let's take the Growth Now movement and your life to the next level in 2021. Now, without further ado, let's get to the episode with Nelson Tressler. Nelson, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Justin.
Yeah, I'm excited about this conversation. We were introduced and your story really blew me away. And I really think it'll resonate with my audience. I think that, there's a lot of people who come from rough circumstances and they kind of look at themselves and they go, well, that means I have no shot. And it's just not the case. Right. And it's all about the decisions you make, but let's hop into who is Nelson today. And then we can kind of unwrap how you got there.
Yeah. So I was, I went into commercial real estate out of college, did that for 20 years, was fortunate enough to become, the top salesman worldwide for a top 5 commercial real estate firm. Wow. And when you're in commercial real estate, I had the entrepreneurial bug and, I saw, opportunities in a lot of different industries, ended up getting into children's daycare centers in Las Vegas, build out a chain of 6 of those in Las Vegas. And then while I was in that, I got into pet resorts and doggy daycares and was fortunate enough to build out one of the largest privately held pet resort chains in the country. Also got into some trampoline parks, family fun centers, and have tried my hand at doing some commercial real estate development. And as I said here today, I've started a new company called I Got Smarter. It's a goal fulfillment app that helps people finally achieve their life's biggest goals through our program and our app.
Yeah, I love it. And obviously that shows success in so many different walks of life, right? Like you said, first of all, I have buddies in commercial real estate. It's not easy. Like
No.
that's a hard racket. And to go to number one in the country or in the world, that's absolutely amazing. But I want to dive into your story, right? Because it all seems fine and dandy. Nelson graduated college and he lit the world on fire from day one and everything was a success, but it wasn't always like that. Let's talk a little bit about kind of where you came from and how you were raised. Because like if people read the show notes, they see that your book is called The Unlucky Sperm Club. It doesn't look like that from the surface, but let's dive into that story a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have quite the origin story. My mom became pregnant with me when she was 15 years old. And while she was pregnant with me, her father, who was the local trash collector in a small town in central Pennsylvania, drove into the town square. There he saw two police officers. He stuck a gun out the window and opened fire on those police officers, killing one and critically wounding the other. And he was eventually captured and brought to stand trial where he was facing the death penalty. And during his murder trial, my mom got up and testified that the reason that her father had shot and killed that police officer was that the police officer had raped her. And she was now pregnant with his baby, who was me. And my mom's testimony worked. The first trial ended in a hung jury. The state took off the death penalty and sought life in prison without the possibility of parole, which eventually my grandfather was found guilty and went away to spend the rest of his life behind bars, more than 40 years, leaving behind my mom, me. My mom came from a family of 15 children, in this small town to kind of deal with the consequences of that and everything that kind of goes along with that. I mean, if you've ever lived in a small town, everybody knows your business. And, couple that with the fact that your grandfather shot and killed a police officer and you were the center of the trial and everything that represented. And it was not a fun place to grow up a lot of the time.
Yeah. So you said central Pennsylvania. I'm curious, what town?
Bellefonte, just south of State College.
Okay, yeah, I'm in Reading, Pennsylvania. That's why I was asking.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
Pennsylvania native as well. But wanted to dive into that a little bit, right? Because when we look at your story and growing up in a small town where everybody knows your business, and I mean, let's face it, you could be in a big town and something that large, everybody's still going to know your business. What was that like growing up and having all eyes on you or having that stigma placed on you as you kind of navigated your young life into your teenage years?
Yeah, I mean, I had to deal with what the town everything that represented and the prejudice against you and people just kind of, staring. It was really a lot like having that scarlet letter around you. No matter where you went, people recognized you for, what you represented. But I mean, I think even harder part of my life was, my mom was 15 years old when she had me. She eventually got married at the age of 21 and come to find out that my stepfather was an alcoholic and very, physically and emotionally abusive. Wow. And had to really deal with that. And, eventually they had 4 other children in quick succession. And because of the lifestyle they're living, a lot of the basic needs of my siblings fall upon me as the oldest, from bottle feeding to diaper changing to even waking up at, 2 a.m. to put kids back to sleep. And, my mom would rather me stay home and help her with the kids than, go to school. And I remember in the 4th grade looking down at my report card and having straight F's and, finding out that I would be, repeating the 4th grade. And it was at this time that the school placed me into special ed to get the help that I needed. I couldn't read, I couldn't write, I couldn't spell. Come to find out I have dyslexia. Wow. And so, that was hard as well. I mean, you're dealing with, everything that my grandfather had done. And then, we're dirt poor. I mean, I remember as a kid opening up the refrigerator and seeing, half bottles of ketchup and mustard and relish were the only things in there. And, it was a crapshoot whether or not your lights were going to turn on, when you hit the switch at this time. And, I talk about a lot of this in my book, The Unlucky Sperm Club, but I remember, our heat getting turned off and, having to open up the ovens, to stay warm in Pennsylvania. So there were all those trials. And yeah, I mean, for instance, I remember, in eighth grade, it's the first time that you pick up your date for a dance. And I had asked this girl I didn't really know and, had a crush on her. And eventually, she said yes, which I was super excited for. And, we didn't have a car growing up. So I asked my cousin to take me, who was a senior in high school or junior, but he had his license, and we borrowed one of my aunt's cars, and we went to pick this girl up. And, right away, her parents were really cold towards me. And, and I'm just like, oh boy. And, I remember they're making chit chat while my date's getting ready. And they're like, well, who's driving you? And I'm like, oh, my cousin, is driving me. And just to chill in the room. And they excused themselves to go talk to my date. And, it was, a long time. And eventually they came out and they're like, oh, we have to pick her up a half an hour early because we have a family function. And I'm like, oh, that's okay. I'll bring her home early. And they're like, no, it's on the way. It'll just be easier. And anyhow, I remember her dad's taking pictures of us, and it looked like he was taking more pictures of our car and our license plate than anything else. And eventually, we went to the dance, had a great time. Her parents came and picked her up, and everything was fine. And I ended up dating this girl through high school, and they were a great family. And eventually they told me, they're like, Nelson, the reason that we came and picked her up is we didn't trust you or your cousin. We thought you guys were going to pull off and rape her. And, come to find out, her dad had followed us to the dance to make sure we got her there. And they had said, we weren't going to let her go if she didn't agree for us to pick her up early. So there were situations like that, because of my last name and, everything that I had to deal with growing up. But yeah, so it wasn't easy, and it wasn't ideal, but here I sit talking to you.
Yeah. And that's incredible to hear all that you had to go through. And I can sit and feel that emotion, right? Like, as we hear that story, like, I couldn't even imagine being an eighth grader. What are you, 14 years old, 15 years old, 13, 14, whatever. And that these parents have this thought. And you're like, there's nothing I can do. Like, you're at a loss, right? And it's interesting because I'm going to ask you a question that I get asked a lot when I talk about my origin story and kind of what I've been able to build and do. And it is, what sets you apart, right? Because look, there's a lot of people who get stuck into these situations where the parents don't make the best decisions. They come from a poor home. They come from lack. They come from all of these things, right? Like, my situation was, my mom was an addict and my dad was in jail at one point. And so all these things that all the signs point to, you've got no shot. What sets you apart? What was it about you that changed where you said, I'm going to make this different for my own life?
Well, eventually, I talked about my stepfather, and eventually one day he was walking home drunk from a bar, and there was somebody else driving home drunk from that bar, and they ended up hitting and killing him.
Oh my gosh.
At this time, my mom has 5 children, and as hard as her life has been to this point, and believe me, it's been brutal for my mom. Here she is with 5 children. She's dropped out of school in the 8th grade. She's never worked outside the home. And, losing my stepfather just left her with zero hope. And it was at this time that she decided she was going to take her own life. And fortunately, she was not successful. But when she got out of the hospital, she determined she couldn't take care of all of us. And my family got split up. And then I went to go live with my grandmother, who was the wife of the man who shot and killed the police officer. And for the first time in my life, I didn't have to worry about opening the refrigerator door and not seeing food. I didn't have to worry about the heat getting turned off. And especially I didn't have to worry about, somebody coming home and beating me or my mom or,
right.
Coming home drunk. So kind of that survival mode was kind of gone from me. And I could start really focusing on where my life was going and what I wanted for my life. And, one thing my gram told me almost every single day of my life was, Nelson, you're going to make something out of your life. And she told me that so many times that I actually started to believe it. And then one day, Penn State University, they sent a counselor down for an assembly in our middle school, and they talked about all the things you had to do to get into college. And that kind of those bells and whistles went off in my head. And I'm thinking, man, if I could graduate college, all of my problems would be solved the rest of my life. That was my mindset.
Yeah.
And, every time you tell yourself you're going to do something hard or difficult, that voice in the back of your head starts screaming at you, all the reasons you can't do it. And not only can't you do it, you shouldn't even try to do it. And I remember thinking to myself, Nelson, you're in special ed. You can't read, you can't write, you can't spell. And of the family that I came from, of my mom's 15 brothers and sisters, only 2 had ever graduated from high school. None had ever attended college. And so I'm thinking, Nelson, you're going to be lucky to graduate high school, let alone, go to college. But I had no other options. That was what I envisioned. If I could do this, my life was going to be different and my family's life was going to be different. So I kind of went after it after that day and started to, go to school and actually even try to do homework and do my best. And believe me, it was a struggle. Try doing well in school when you struggle at reading and writing and spelling. But eventually, just like with any other goal, eventually when you try hard enough and you take those many steps, eventually I remember I passed my way out of special ed at the end of 10th grade. And, flash forward 12 years after setting that goal, 4 different universities, 4 years in the Air Force on the GI Bill to get money. I eventually became that first person in my family to graduate from college and get a college degree.
Wow. That's such an incredible story to hear. And like you said, it wasn't like, I like the idea of I set this goal. And although I know it would be really hard to attain, I did every possible thing I could, including signing up for the military, which that was a part of your story that we skipped earlier on, in order to get that college degree paid for, all these crazy things. What was it about college that you're like, this is my ticket out? Is it because nobody had done it before in your family?
Yeah. And I mean, it's like when you look on these big grandeur things that you really had no experience with. And, I was fortunate enough to get placed in the Big Brother, Big Sister program. And, that was kind of some contrast of what my family was. And I saw this man, his name was Chuck, and I looked up to him and saw that his life and saw how good it was. And he was a student at Penn State, and he actually had went on the GI Bill in the Navy. And so I look at that and modeled that life and like, okay, look at what a great guy this guy is. He's going to college. He's getting a degree. That's the life that I want. And that was kind of the one thing that I could do was, set that goal to become that first person to graduate from college.
No, I love it. And I like the fact that there were moments in your life that kind of gave you highlights of a greater opportunity, right? Like if you stayed with your mom and continuously opened that empty fridge, compared to going and living with your grandmother, being like, wow, there is an opportunity to live with abundance in some way, shape, or form. And then getting that mentor with the Big Brother, Big Sister, I hear and I keep seeing this revelation of like something to look up to, somebody to guide me, some sort of mentorship. How important did that play in a role as you went through college and then into real estate?
Yeah. So, I mean, after I graduated from college, I kind of looked at it like, holy cow, I actually did it. And, I saw the power in goals and personal development. And after that, I became obsessed with it. I became obsessed with goals and personal development. And, I bought every program I could afford. I went to every conference I could go to. I subscribed to the magazines. I listened to all the books. And I really used, all of these strategies and these techniques to design this life that I'm living today. And I couldn't have even imagined this life, 30 years ago. But I saw the power in it, and not only the power for my life, but the power for my family's life. My 3 boys are living drastically different lives than I was living. And that's all started with one goal. And and then it grew from there. And that's what I think people need to understand is you got to start where you're at, right? You can't start anywhere else. And you just got to start. Things aren't going to be perfect. All the traffic lights are never going to be green. You just have to take that one step. It's a lot like walking through fog. You can only see so far, but as you continue to take a step after step after step, the landscape opens up to you and you start to see more and more and more. And that's what I started to do. And, last week I just celebrated my 25th wedding anniversary. And that is my biggest accomplishment. My biggest goal in my life is I want to be married to my wife for 50 years. And there's a lot that goes into that, but that's my biggest goal. And that's my priority. And especially considering the family that I came from. And so, yeah, goals and personal development, getting that into your mind and really striving and understanding that you have all this potential inside of you. And that was the one thing is once you realize that all this potential lies inside of you and you're capable of reaching that potential, you'll never be the same. You'll never settle for, being less than what you're capable of again. And that was the biggest change in me is that, for the first time in my life, I realized, holy cow, I can do hard things. And you know what? There's something special inside of me, and I need to strive to release all of that potential that's there. And you know what? Not only do I owe it to myself, I owe it to my family, I owe it to the world to really become that best version of myself. And that's what I've been trying to do for the last, 25 years.
That's incredible. And as I hear your journey and your story, it's amazing. Set a goal, go attain it, but it's not always that easy, right?
No.
There's going to be moments where it gets hard. There's going to be moments where you're going to be reminded by the universe, God, source of where you come from, right? You're going to be reminded of these things. And sometimes that can knock you down a peg. What did you do in those moments of struggle when you were like, look, there's always that like, hey, we might have a good 6-month run. Like things are going really, really well. And then something comes and knocks you down, right? Something relatable to everybody is business was probably good. COVID came around and it knocked you down, right? So let's talk a little bit about what you do in those moments of struggle or those moments where you get knocked down a peg, how you keep going mentally.
Yeah. So in my book, The Unlucky Sperm Club, I write about this. I talked about those children's daycare centers that I was involved with. Well, I took those over from a partner who embezzled $1 million from me. Ooh. And my father-in-law. So I never wanted to run those, but and it was during the 2008, 2009 recession. So business was horrible anyhow. But I'm running these things and not really knowing what I'm doing. I had no operational business, experience, But eventually, I get these things running pretty good. And then one of my directors is going to leave one of the centers. We had 6 of them. And my regional manager comes to me and they say, you know what, I've got the perfect person to replace them. And it was a man. And, I thought to myself, geez, you don't want to hire a man in the daycare industry. They have this huge target on them. Parents don't trust them. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing it. I'm sorry. And they're like, he's the best director ever. And he's working for a national daycare chain. And she just, and I kind of shoved it off. I interviewed a bunch of people. There was never a fit. And then finally, I'm like, okay, you know what? Bring him in. And he did. He blew me away. He was incredible. And so I ended up hiring him against my gut. A year and a half later, I turn on the news and there's a news station out in front of my daycare. And there's a picture of my director in the upper left-hand corner that says, daycare worker accused of child molestation. And, that I don't know that there's many more things that are worse for a business owner than to own a daycare and have your director be accused of that. And again, this is during the recession. So everything we're barely making it as it is. But it was like the worst, year and a half of my business life. But eventually, and I don't want to give away everything that's in the book, but, eventually you just have to keep on keeping on. And one of the things that I think has really helped me in my life is I truly focus on the things that I can control. I really truly think that it is insanity to worry about things you have absolutely no control over. And I think, my upbringing and my childhood, I really, I couldn't control a lot of the things that happened to me, but I could control what I could control. And I think that's carried over into my adult life. And, you have that sense of shock. You have that sense of your heart is in your throat. And, I'm not saying that I didn't feel bad for myself for a week or maybe even a month in this situation, but eventually I started to focus on the things that I could control. And, I figured out what that worst case scenario was. And you know what? I came to grasp with that. And then I did everything that was in my power to try to make it not be the worst case scenario. And eventually, a lot of work and a lot of sleepless nights, I was able to overcome that and save that chain of daycare centers. And eventually I was able to sell them.
That's amazing. That's incredible. So I hear this story, and your mom, your stepdad, your father-in-law, that was a breeze in the conversation. What do you do when you're approached by a potential new partner, new friend, new whoever? How do you get over what potentially could be trust issues? Because some of the closest people to you were somebody who they lost your trust.
Yeah, I mean, and to be clear, my father-in-law was not the one that didn't, he wasn't the one that embezzled the money. It was another partner, and me and my father-in-law were the investors. And the reason that was so significant was he was a dentist and going through kidney failure and was going to lose the ability to practice. That's why it was so important to save his investment, because he had invested everything. So, I want to make that clear. I don't want any uncomfortable Thanksgiving dinners after this interview.
No, that's good. But yeah, I mean, same question though. It's still somebody you invested in who was embezzling. And
you know what? I'm a trusting guy. And that's one of the things I learned in business is I expected everybody to do business the way that I would do business. And I realized that people weren't like that. But I think trust is probably the most important thing in a partnership, because if you're not going to trust that partner, you shouldn't go into business with them. And if you are going to go into business with them, then you need to trust them. And I don't think you can kind of have one foot in a partnership and always be looking and thinking that this guy doesn't have your best interest or the business best interest at hand. That's a miserable partnership and a miserable life to live. So if you are going to be partners with somebody, make sure that you trust them 100%. I mean, I've been partners with my brother-in-law for 20 years now, and I would trust him with everything. And I never lose sleep thinking that he's not doing what's best for me and best for the business. And, it's a wonderful partnership because he kind of does all the things well that I suck at. And I kind of do the things well that he's not good at.
I love it. So here you are, you've built this great success in business, and, you've become a millionaire in your own right and all the other things in between. Why the book? What is it about this book that you're like, I need to get this message out there?
Yeah, for the longest time, all the situation that I just told you about my birth and my mom and my grandfather, when I left in the Air Force, I never moved back to that town. I met my wife and we got married and we moved to Las Vegas. The only person that knew that story was my wife. And I told her that before I married her because I just figured, you know what, she deserves to know that situation. But I told nobody else. And the reason for that was it just weakened me. I remember growing up and it was just, I regretted any time I had to explain it or bring up my last name and people would ask. And, I was just so happy when I joined the Air Force and I left and people would say my last name and it wouldn't mean anything to them. Man, I felt so liberated. Like I could really be anybody that I wanted to be. And so I never told anybody about it. And then, a few years ago, I was fortunate enough to sell the pet resorts, sell a couple other businesses and, get some cash flow through commercial real estate. And I got to the point where, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? Because it's not in me to pop my feet up and watch waves come crash in,
Yeah,
So
right.
and I started to reflect upon, why did I live this life that I lived? And I started to realize, you know what, I survived it. I came out the other end, and it really came to me that, I had lived this life to inspire others and motivate others who are stuck in a tough situation, or maybe even were born in a different situation. And, the one quote that I love is, success is great, but success is for you. And, I wanted to have significance and help. Significance is about other people. And I had enough success and grateful for every ounce of it, because it was a struggle and it was hard. But I was to the point in my life where I wanted significance, and I wanted to help other people. And I wanted to give, the events of my life a good meaning, because I truly believe you get to assign meaning to everything that happens to you in your life. And for the longest time, I had assigned a negative meaning to what my grandfather had done, and what that meant for me. And for the first time, when I was thinking about helping others, I gave it a positive meaning. And all of a sudden, the same events, the same thing happened. All of a sudden now, when I talk about it, it gives me energy, and it motivates me, and it inspires me. Same events. The only thing that changed was I started to give it a positive meaning. And I believe you can really do that with any situation in your life. And I strive to do that. I strive to find something positive in everything that happens to me. And it has made a huge difference in my life and my outlook.
I love that. Yeah. A good friend of mine, Ed Milet, always says, life is happening for me, not to me.
Love that.
And when you can take that approach, sometimes easier said than done, right? But if you can take that approach into certain areas of your life, or even reflecting back like you did, changes the game 100%, which I love, man. So it's funny that you mentioned success, because a question that I ask everybody, because I have the opportunity due to this podcast to interview some of the most successful people in the world. So my question for you is, what is your definition of success? And what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself in the world?
Yeah, I mean, you know what? Success is me lying on my deathbed at 135 years old, surrounded by, generations after generations who were successful in life and lived happy lives. My family and my marriage are at the top of my success. And in my opinion, if I failed at that, no amount of success outside of my home is ever going to make up for that. And I really live my priorities that way. I have other things that I want to do with my life. I definitely, want to build businesses and help people and do all of that. But my number one success is my family and my marriage. So that's what success is. But, I also want to leave this legacy. And, what I want to do now with the rest of my life is I really want to change the world. And the way that I want to do that is by one person and one inspiring goal at a time. And because I know the power that goals have, because of the life that I lived, I understand that those goals aren't just for the person who is achieving them. Goals are generational. I mean, my family now is living a drastically different life than I lived. And that's all within one generation. And it all started with that one goal of being the first person to graduate from college. So I see that, and it's kind of, I've stopped that chain, and hopefully I've started a new chain. And that's what I want to do for, anybody else who wants to do that for their lives and for their families and for the generations to follow, is to be that first person to take control of their lives and to, start living with purpose and designing that life that they want to live, and hopefully propelling the generations to follow to live those same extraordinary lives.
I love it. That answer hit me deep, man. I love your drive, your motivation, and everything else in between, for sure. So I always wrap up every single interview with the same question. But before we get there, how do people get a hold of the book? How do they get a hold of you so they can work with you? What's all the good stuff?
Yeah, the book is available on Amazon. The Unlucky Sperm Club. You are not a victim of your circumstances, but a product of your choices, or anywhere else books are sold. You can get in touch with me at nelsontressler.com. Also the new company that we started to help people achieve their goals is called I Got Smarter. And it is a full-blown goal fulfillment program associated with an app that you can find on all the app stores. It's all one word, I Got Smarter. We're on the socials. I'm not very good at social media. Never really had it until this business. So I'm kind of wading through that, but you can find me at Nelson Tressler on most of the social networks.
Awesome. I love it, man. Like I said, I wrap up every single interview with the same question. Since the show is called The Growth Now Movement, the question is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
You know what? And I talk about this in my book. When me and my wife's marriage was struggling, and where I came from, I didn't know how to be married, and we struggled on how to be married, and I was really had high expectations for my wife and for my family, and it was not working well for us. We were separated a couple of times, and the one thing that really hit me was, I heard this quote, stop having expectations and start having appreciation. And as soon as I stopped having those unrealistic expectations for my wife and started appreciating her for how awesome she was, our marriage changed, our family changed. And, now, like I said, we just passed 25 years. And if I wouldn't have learned that lesson, that marriage could have ended in a drastically different way.
I love it, man. Nelson, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom, but more importantly, taking your story and impacting the world, because the people need to hear it. And it's super inspiring to hear that it was a cringe thing for you and now it's empowering. I think that's huge for people to hear, man. And this conversation I've really enjoyed thoroughly. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Justin. I love the conversation, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much for being a part of the Growth Now movement. This is how you can really help me out. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that fun stuff. And let's grow this movement to epic heights. And it's all going to be because of you guys. Thank you so much. And we'll see you next week.